Hi, thanks for calling Tiny Temptations Cupcake Store. What can I get started for you today?
What do you guys have on the menu?
Yeah, sure. So we have chocolate, red velvet, vanilla, lemon blueberry, and salted caramel cupcakes. Is there one you're interested in, or do you want to hear more about any of them?
Yeah, can I have the salted caramel cupcake?
All right, I'm placing your order for a salted caramel cupcake with the store right now. Your order's all set. Thanks so much, and have a great day.
Awesome. Okay, so you can see in the KDS, the kitchen display system, the order appeared. And if we check in Square, we can also see it right here. The order just came in for my salted caramel cupcake. What you just saw was a demo of an AI voice agent I set up for a fictional cupcake store. And you guys saw how I was able to ask about the menu and then place an order for a cupcake. And it was integrated into the Square POS. In this video, I'm going to show you how I set this up, and I'm going to talk about the feasibility of actually using this in the real world. Let's get right into it. The AI voice agent for restaurants. So basically, the system that I built allows people to place orders over the phone. So basically, you can call a restaurant, you can say, hey, I want a large pizza, and then it'll actually be able to process that order and receive it into the POS of that restaurant and even display it on their kitchen display system, which they have in the kitchen, so the cooks can actually know what to prepare. And the cool thing as well is that we can process payments over the phone. And in the demo, I didn't show that part, but that's something that will be relatively simple to implement as well. So I want to show you guys how this all works. I want to give you a high-level overview. And the tech stack that I'm using is, for the voice agent, I'm using Retell AI. Then I'm using N8N to actually power the automations. And I'm using Square as my POS. And finally, I'm using Fresh as my KDS, my kitchen display system. So how does it all work? Well, let's hop into Retell for a second, and you can see the conversation flow that I used for this really simple demo. And it starts out by just asking the user what they want to order. And there's two possibilities. Either the user says what they want, or they can ask what's available, and that'll route them over to the menu node, and this will actually tell the user what's on the menu. And then once they say what they want, then we move over to this function call where they actually order the food. Now, probably the most interesting part of this is this order food node, because this is where we actually make the function call. And this is, in my opinion, the fun part of building these voice agents, is defining all the functions, all the abilities that the voice agent has, and then actually implementing those. So in my case, for all of the voice agents that I build, I always use N8N to actually enable these functionalities. So if I hop over to N8N here, this is the workflow that I set up for this agent. And the main functionality that we're using right now is this create order node, create order workflow that I made here. And as you can see here, we start out with this webhook, which is the endpoint that Retell is actually gonna contact whenever it calls the function. And if I click onto this, you can see all this stuff that you're seeing over here on the right. This is the data that Retell is sending to my N8N workflow. So for example, you can see things like the transcript. It'll actually have the full transcript of the call, but more importantly, there's a section for function calls. Let's see if I can find it here. If I minimize these, right here. So if you see, it says name order food. So that is the actual function call that was made on the call. And we can see the data that was passed over. The food was chocolate cupcake, right? So this is from a previous test I did. But yeah, you can see that Retell will send over the data from the function call into my N8N automation. And then from here, I can actually interface with Square. So I know I'm getting a little bit too much into the weeds, so I'll zoom out a little bit. Basically, we make that function call in N8N. We handle all the logic, we interact with the Square API, and that's how we're actually able to get these orders to come through into my Square dashboard. And by the way, you guys can see that I'm doing it for $0. That's because this is my actual Square account, and I don't want them to think that I'm committing fraud with a bunch of payments coming through randomly. So I've set it to $0 for now. Okay, so last thing I want to mention in this video is the feasibility of actually implementing this in the real world. So there's a few concerns that I kind of thought of, and I'll go through them one by one. So first one is fraudulent orders. It occurred to me that basically if somebody calls this AI, or they call the restaurant and they expect to speak to a human, but then they realize they're speaking to an AI, they might not actually take it seriously. So they might think it's like some kind of joke, and they might say, oh, I want 1,000 pizzas. So obviously we need to avoid people that are making phony orders. And how do we do that? Well, my thinking is that we should only accept the orders when a person has actually provided their payment method. So once they've actually provided their credit card number, then we count that as a valid order and we send it to the POS and to the restaurant. So that's currently my thinking as to how we can prevent these fraudulent orders. Then another concern is, okay, well, what if multiple people are calling at the same time? That's really easy because Retell and most other voice platforms allow you to have concurrent phone calls, so that's really not an issue. And then final concern might be the menu knowledge, or if the person makes a really complex order, will the AI be able to handle it? And the answer to that really comes down to how well do you design your system. So I think that you should do something like this that I'm showing right here. You should have an order staging phase where basically you are just speaking to the AI and the AI is kind of just building out the order based on what the person is saying. And if the person changes their mind, well, it's no big deal because we can just modify the order while it's still in this staging phase. But then once the person seems to have settled on what they want to order, then we should ask a question that says, hey, is this your final order? Do you want to finalize your order? And once that happens, then we can move on to the next part, which would be to receive payment. So really, it just comes down to designing the system well so that you can handle any of these edge cases or when people change their mind, stuff like that. It just comes down to designing the system well. Personally, I think that this is a really cool use case for AI voice agents. And I would love to know what you guys think. Do you think that this is actually feasible in the real world? For example, if you called a restaurant and you realized that you were speaking to an AI voice, would you still place an order or would you demand that you speak to a human? Let me know what you guys think in the comments.